Welcome back, everyone. We hope you have refilled your tea and shifted in your seats, but we also hope you're right here with us to view, listen, experience, and absorb the magic of this conversation that is about to take place between master photographers Sebastiao Salgado and Raghu Rai. Please allow me to humbly introduce both of these stalwarts, one after the other.
Very briefly.
Yes, please. Sebastião Salgado is a Brazilian social documentary photographer and photojournalist who lives in Paris, France. He's married to Leila Vanik Salgado, and they've contributed immensely to the photography community. He's a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador, an honorary member of the Academy of Arts and Sciences in USA, and a receiver of many such honors from different countries around the world. Governments of Italy, Spain, Brazil, Germany, everybody have felicitated him with the highest order of honors. Since the 1990s, Leila and Sebastião have worked together on the restoration of the part of the Atlantic forest in Brazil in the state of Minas Gerais. In 1998, they succeeded in turning this land into a natural reserve and created the Instituto Terra. The Instituto is dedicated to a mission of reforestation, conservation, and environmental education. Sebastian, sir, it's truly an honor to have you with us today here, and we cannot thank you enough for giving us your time, even in these tough moments. Raghu Rai ji needs no introduction. He's a Padma Shri awardee, is the most revered Indian photographer and documenter. His photographs of Saint Teresa, Indira Gandhi, the Dalai Lama, J. Krishnamurti, they're all indicative of his philosophy of finding the human story. Rai's relationship with the camera is almost as old as India's relationship with independence. And besides winning many national and international awards, Raghu Rai ji has exhibited his works across the world. Sir, we are thrilled to have you with us once again. And now, without wasting a moment of both of your time, I will wait for the magic to fill the air. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Yes, Sebastian. We are in our 70s, and the eternal truth is we have to vacate the planet sometime or the other for other people to take over. But as the lady was mentioning, your work in your homeland in Brazil, how much 1,700 acres of land that you brought to life, and so much is happening with the people of Brazil. And this is something very rare for a photographer to be engaged with so intensely. And I remember last time during the award ceremony in Paris, you were asking me about my farm and the plants I have been planting. And now I have seen the details, and it's such an amazing, sensitive work you've done to inherit a land which is barren and dry and create that magic of greens, the breeze, the atmosphere playing with your trees was so wonderful to watch. And that also describes the spirit of Sebastian Salgado, because that guy, I must tell everybody, there are very few gentlemen photographers, sensitive, caring, and not having big airs about themselves. Very few. And he is one of them, and a very rare human being. And it's a delight to be known and to be friends. And plus, the huge body of work he's done on workers, on refugees, and now his latest project. I mean, he chooses amazing situations and he explored the world where nobody else has gone. Now, Sebastian, the question is that your documentation, even when you were in Africa during the droughts and famine, and your Genesis, which is your latest work of 8 years, You know, you said something very beautiful when I told you I can't stay away from home for more than 5, 7, 10 days. And I said, how do you manage to stay away for so long? You know, he said something very beautiful, which is etched in my mind. And Sebastian said, Raghu, wherever I go, I carry my home inside me. Wow, man. That is a very special quality. So now that you have done variety of projects, how do you see where photography is going in your life?
I'll go put the question again.
I said you have done variety of subject matter, from news stories to even semi-assassination of one of America's president, and from drought and famine in South in Africa, and workers, refugees, all this, and you are moving from one to another major project. What is it that drives you so intensely and so closely? What is it? Why? Why do you still keep doing it? Very simple and
Go. I come from a young country. You born in a very old cultural country that is India.
yeah,
Me, I come from a young country. My country has just 500 years old. And the population there is a mixture of population of all over the world.
yeah,
We had the native population there, the Brazilian indigenous people.
yeah.
And but majority came from outside. And my family part came from Ukraine that migrated to Switzerland. From Switzerland, migrate part to Brazil. Other side of my family came from Spain, from Galicia, came to down there. And you see, the world was very close to me. Same if I was isolated in South America. The world was very close. Big part of the Brazilian culture are Africans. Africa just in front of Brazil, the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, but just in front. And I remember when I came out of the farm of my parents, I came to Vitoria, that is a town of Lélia, my wife born, that's seaside. We had a very big harbor there that we exported iron ore for all over the world. Anyway, I saw these ships come to collect the iron ore. And every day you have a lot of ships leaving, full of iron ore, going to Japan, going to United States, going to Norway, going to everywhere in this planet. And I had an incredible wish to go, to know the planet, to see from where my origins were coming from. And you see, I have 7 sisters. I'm just one man in my family. My sisters became married, that they gone abroad in Brazil. Brazil is a country that's 3 times bigger than India. India is a huge country, majority size is Brazil. And I was very young. My father sent me alone to visit my sister that were 2-3 days trip far from our home. And I go, and for me to go, to know other things, to visit, to bring news from my family,
Right.
was fabulous. And when I was quite young, Leila and myself, we were fighting against dictatorship in Brazil. In a moment, was necessary to us or to go to the guerrilla, completely disappear to fight against this government or leave Brazil. We were too young, the organization that they were part of it, to take a decision that you guys are too young to go to the fight, you will leave Brazil. And we leave Brazil. Oh. We came to France. I came to do studies. I was preparing a PhD in economics. Leila became an architect. And you see, when I arrived in France, I knew France as the line of my hands because I had so many things about France, read so many things about France. When I came for the first time to India, that I stay in your home, Raghu, and I stay for a while, and I came for other trips in India, and I stay with you again, with Julian, my son. In a sense, I was come to my home. India is my home also. You see, every part of this planet that I went was my home. You are a photographer that worked deeply in your country. But my country is your country also. My country is everywhere. And I went for more than 130 different countries around this world.
Wow.
I did an incredible amount of work. For me, important was not a culture, because I came from a too young culture, not from a solid culture like you come from a solid culture. For me, was important was what was inside my mind, what was my wish, what was my ideology, what was my political message, was to see something that made me very happy or something that made me very upset, and working some ideas that were important for me. In reality, I work very few stories ago. My stories sometimes was built of a lot of small stories. When I came first time to work in India, where in your home, I was doing a body of work called, that became a book called Workers.
But you spent
Workers for,
years doing it, right?
yes, Workers for me was one story, but one story that it took me 6 years to do it.
Wow.
I work in India, work in China, work in Brazil, work in France. I work in more than 30 different countries around the world to build this story. You see, and that's the point. When I came to India different times, I came once to India to do a story about poliomyelitis. I'm goodwill ambassador of UNICEF, and UNICEF asked me to do a book about poliomyelitis around the world. And I come to India. It was so amazing to come to work on this on India, because when I saw the map of India 5 years before, the red points that identified the number of polio cases in India, it was red as your shirt, full of points, more than 300,000 cases of poliomyelitis in India. And when I was coming to photograph 5 years later, we have just 7 points in the Indian map, just 7 cases of poliomyelitis. That was a so beautiful story to do. And I gone all over the world to photograph the end of the poliomyelitis. For me, was on a story that took my heart. And you see, this is a story that drives me. What is amazing photography? That you, Raghu, for me, you are a monument in photography. You work in your country. And me, I work everywhere. But what we did is very close. It's not too different. Yeah. We are deeply motivated to be there, to be part of this big movement, that the historical moment that we are living. You are part of the historical moment of India that you live, this year that you live. When I saw your work, you are in very important moment inside India. And me also, I were in so many different historical moments that happen around the planet. I just finished a body of work now, 7 years in Amazonia. Amazonia for me was so important. I work with the Indian movements, I work with landscapes, with the rains, with the aerial river. I was there for 7 years. And now I have a book come out in next April about Amazonia. You see, that's a part of my historical moment. I believe that this opportunity that photography gave to us, to you, to me, to many other photographers, Bruno Babet, also, that we were completely tied to the historical moment that we live.
Yeah, beautiful. Yes. I must tell the participants, audience, because Sebastian has mentioned a few times that he came and stayed with me. Now, how did he stay with me is the most beautiful, tender story. You know, I was working with India Today and also shooting for Magnum off and on. And I get a call from Sebastian that he is coming to India and he'd like to meet me. So we fixed an appointment for the evening for dinner. So I was still at the India Today office. I got delayed. And then I came home. Sebastian was sitting in the drawing room. So when I walk in, he gets up and he greets me. And how? He says, Raghu, the energy in your home is so positive and so beautiful. Why can't I stay here? Can you imagine anybody coming to meet you for the first time?
Raghu, your microphone is cut. I cannot hear you.
Tá cortado dele, não. Mas todo mundo...
Raghu, your microphone.
E o dele também.
You're on mute, sir. You have to unmute yourself.
Tá cortando.
How's it?
No, it's okay. No, it's good.
Yeah. So have you heard the story of how he came and stayed with in my house?
So in between we lost you, so you could start once again. That's a fantastic story to hear all over once again. Thank you.
Yeah. So, he comes to Delhi for the first time, sometimes in mid-80s, and he says, I'm here. And I said, come home for the evening for dinner. So I was working with the news, India Today at that time also. So I reached home a little late and Sebastian was sitting there. So he got up, he greeted me very warmly. And first time in my life, we are meeting each other. And he says, Raghu, the energy in your home is so good. Why can't I stay here? Can you imagine what magic touch he has in his expression and his sensitivity? And I said, why not? And this is how I cherish these moments forever if he's forgotten them. Now, coming to the fact that we, the concerned photographers working in different parts, Sebastian, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you.
Now, working in different countries, in different spaces at different time. A few weeks ago, you were in conversation with Shahidul Alam, right?
Ask again, please, because I don't hear more very well, Raghu. Tell me again.
Shahidul Alam, you were in conversation with Shahidul Alam a few weeks ago.
Yes.
And he is a photographer and more of an activist.
Yes.
And you were in conversation. Now, you see, of course, we have to be responsible and concerned citizens and concerned photographers. But when we add a political line to our photograph, then it changes its shades, right?
You see, Raghu.
No, let me complete my...
Okay, complete.
Yeah. But the fact is that, when he got arrested by his government and, at one time they had honored me as friend of Bangladesh when I was photographing the refugees and the war. So I was honored by the Prime Minister. So I wrote a letter to the Prime Minister saying that you are a daughter of a revolutionary. And Shahidul is a person who loves his country and he's very concerned. And it doesn't feel good that he should be put to such difficulties. So, when he was released, he invited me for their festival. And there I said that I, as a concerned citizen, as a photographer, is my right to get into any situation that concerns not only me, the country as a whole, the people as a whole. And I will like to capture the truth as it gets revealed there and then. But I will not add another line which creates explosive political statement. What do you think of that?
Raghu, you see, all humans, we are a political animal.
Yeah, somewhere, yes, sure.
We are very political. And each one has one history, his own history. When you, Raghu Rai, go to photograph, you photograph with all your heritage. And when I go to photograph, I photograph with the mind, and other photographers of the there. And each one is concerned in a different way. And I don't believe that I have right to say anything about the behavior of the others, because they have a reason to be there and to do what they are doing. And that's the point. Me personally, I'm not part of any political party. I'm now fighting with the Indian movements in Brazil in order to protect the Amazon forest, protect the Indian communities, because we have extreme rightist president, terrible, horrible men. And I'm fighting, but not fighting inside a political party. I'm fighting in a way that I believe that is more interesting for me. But I have other Brazilian photographer friends that are political photographers. They're right. Acting direct there. They have the reason to do. And that for me, I cannot judge. I cannot say. Each one is each one. And what's important that all our work together give we are a kind of mirror of the society that we are part of it. And the society see itself by our photographies. We all together, not mine photography or your photography, but your photography, the mine and Sedu and other around this planet. And I believe that's the point. Well, it's like this that I...
Yeah, but, a little bit of the fact that, when I feel your photograph is as good as much it can speak for itself for just now through your image. And when you take the crutches of the words to add more to it, this is where by and large, now there is conceptual photography, there is all kinds of fine art photography happening. Fine. I mean, we are nobody to stop anybody. This is a medium. Anybody can use it the way they want. But the purity of approach and instinctive response to any given situation has another kind of discovery of exploration that takes you deeper into depths without needing to have any words around it. And I see that in your photography, that your pictures, most of the time, they don't need words. And this aspect is also somewhere diluting the pure form of photography, but everybody has the right. Even people are photographing with their cell phone, and they are sending all kinds of images, and some of them are very relevant. But like we've been there for centuries on this planet, so our thinking has been slightly different. This is what I meant.
No, I understand. For me, you see, there is photography, and there is another thing that is not photography, that is plastical arts, that is represented by a photographic support, a camera that made a picture, we printed this in a photograph paper, that become a photography, but it has nothing to do with photography that you does, that I do, that is so instinctive. One photography that we do, we live it. You are inside a phenomena. You are accepted by a group. You are part of it. You grow inside. As the things go, you go together. You are each inside by this phenomena, by this movement. Your pictures go to the moment that you capture part is you that capture, and part is your instinct, part is the people that integrate you inside of their movement, and that the picture come out from this. And sometimes we come so tired for a sequence of pictures because you are so deeply inside. Now you are completely integrated to it. And you see, now you have this big foire of photography, like Paris Photo, like big meetings of photography. Photography become a big business. And when you go to this big business of photography,
absolutely, that's the question.
Yeah, about I see here in Paris this big Paris Photo. You go there, about more than 90% are pictures made to be there. You see, there are pictures built. They are completely built. There is no heart on it. There is no instinctive moment. There is no any integration of your mind inside the phenomenon that you are in front of it. There is no emotion. And that's the big difference, Raghu. And it's not that our kind of photography that finished. No, there is a lot of very good young photographers that does photography like you, Raghu, did all your life long. But there is a new fashion in photography. Photography become a big business. And when you go to these galleries for this, and you see people buying photography for tens of thousands of dollars, and they say, oh my God, this is not photography. Photography for me is another thing. And that absolutely is.
No, but this is a point of, I'll say, a bit of worry, in the sense that, listen, the great guys like Robert Frank or Henri Cartier-Bresson, and even people like Ansel Adams, the milestones they set up. I remember, Henri Cartier-Bresson, when somebody asked him about Andre Curtis, who was, I think, 15 years, 20 years senior to him. So somebody asked Bresson about his work, Andre Curtis' work. He says, what we are trying to do, he has already done so much in that direction. We are only exploring the next possibilities. Now, the point is that everything comes from somewhere. Nothing comes from nowhere. And to leave those milestones, I am certainly not a follower of any photographer's style, because styles come and disappear with the time. And trendy photography is the worst thing which is happening to photography. And many young photographers are being dragged into it like a fast food attitude that they have. Now, the question is that all those guys, I mean, if they hadn't set those milestones for us, we wouldn't be taking off to another level of fulfillment and richness and creativity, so that the journey of this medium gets enriched and more powerful. Sometimes I feel how I wish I could photograph India in one click of my picture that captures the spirit of everything that India represents, which is impossible. You understand the feeling I'm saying. And here these are, colorless, bland, emotionless, photographs exhibiting and being bought and sold. This is where we as senior photographers need to discuss it a little more, because this is not something that, you see, I feel that your heart should become your sensor, that it receives everything as it is, and you reflect with your intuitive response. And here, the mind, they say conceptual photography happens in this little mind space, which is 4 inches, 5 inches. And the world out there is so large, but they are so happy and impressed, and the galleries are ready to exhibit and sell that kind of nonsense. So somebody has to speak up a bit louder, I think,
Yeah, but you see, Raghu, this is how the world works. it's moments in the history. These things goes and comes, you know. And but what is amazing for me yet is when I go to Paris Photo, the pictures that are the more research for them, the people come to see are exactly the pictures of Ansel Adams, of Henri Cartier-Bresson, of Kertész, no, of Raghu Rai, of these photographers that really put their heart inside their photography, not the fashion. The fashion is the fashion. No, you see, for me, you produce something, you said that is an art object. For you, you say that is an art object. That is nothing. Art must be a reference. If Raghu Rai, your pictures, one day we tell the history of your country and that go to the museums of India, and the next generations will be seeing your pictures as the history of India, they become art objects because they are property of the humanity and they tell the story of the moment that we live. You transmit something. If you produce something, you can sell it very expensive, you say that is art object, and if don't mean nothing, it will disappear. That will disappear unnecessarily. And that's the point. When you see today the work of Ansel Adams that made incredible landscapes, he tells the story of his country. He tells the stories of California. He tells the stories of New Mexico, where he went. He spent the nights to do a picture of the moon and the things. And there is so many heart there inside that he tells the stories. This story, you can say that is an artwork. But there is so many photographers in that time that made so many kind of pictures that sometimes you see one or other, but these guys disappeared as they came. They were, for a moment, artists. I believe that the most important, if you become a real art worker, is the history that you tell, not you, Raghu Rai, not me, Sebastiao Salgado, is the history. If that become reference of our time, this is art. I went the other day for one show in Barcelona. Friends bring me to see African art. And we went there and we started to see work instruments that was made to transportate water. So this, and these were there showing the African artists. That was real artists. And that were in a museum tell the story of the Africans. You see, in a moment that they were made in just a work on object, an object to transportate water, but they were so well done that tell so many about the sculptures that become the reference of the sculptures. And I believe that is the most important. That if this body of work that you are doing become the reference of your country, you did a fabulous artistic work. If not, you just live in your mountain, you disappear.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'll put it across in these terms that, I have always felt the purpose of photography, which I see in Sebastião and many other photographers of our time, that the purpose of photography is to capture the time we live in, because that's going to be the visual history of tomorrow. Now, you see, at the same time, when photography started, the influence of painting tradition was so heavy on photography. And when they did portraits, studio portraits, they made a backdrop, they made the person sit in a certain style. And this was all acquired from the tradition of painting. Now, painting, the world of painting has centuries of tradition and experience and explorations. We started copying them. And then from there, people like Andre Curtis, Cartier-Bresson, these guys, they took off in different directions. And the problem with today's generations of SEO is that even if they do photography and they make their money and bread out of photography, they want to call themselves photographers. Now, fine, they can call themselves whatever they like. But the fact is that the method they choose and the journey they take on is so controlled by their own little mind space. And they want to look different. You know, here they pack Maggie sauce in different colors and they call it's different. So Maggie sauce sells pretty well in India. Similarly, these kind of attitudes which are happening, short-term gains, fast food generation in a hurry for gratification, these are the questions which need to be discussed and talked about. Because the tradition of photography, from where it started and how each individual, even the landscapes, have changed so much today. The journey into the every particle of the earth and the rest of the atmosphere that captures the spirit of those particles in some form of the other, is where your investment lies, where you put your heart and soul into it, and then it begins to reveal itself. But there is no time for revelation in today's world. And as you were saying in Paris photo, that's what you get to see, and that's happening all over the world, everywhere. That's
all over the world. So,
all.
yeah, that's the point.
You are sitting, I am sitting in India. I'm not bothered much about many things, but you are sitting right there in the middle of it all. And France was the country where the camera was invented.
Well, but it's like this. It's like this. For example, in the Academy of Beaux-Arts, we have two bigger prizes. One you win last year. This year we just gave another. And comes hundreds of portfolios of this kind of photography. But in the end, when you have a group of people looking, the photographies that real become reference are not real this kind of photography. It is just fashion photography. In a moment that comes and disappear, and it's like any movement around the world, and that's the point. Important is keep going. For us, it's like to be in a bicycle. I'm 77 years old, 76, close to 77. You are about my age, and it's like to be in a bicycle. You must keep pedaling. The contrary, we drop, we must go. And I remember once I came to Mexico for the birthday, we were together, of Álvares Bravo, Dom Manuel Álvares Bravo. He was made 100 years old. And I remember with Lely, we came to his home, and he said, Sebastian, I want to show you my new pictures. I said, my God, Dom Manuel with 100 years. And the pictures were there. His feet were sick. It was necessary to put his feet inside the hot water. And the pictures were the pictures of his feet inside the hot water. But he was there photographing with 100 years. And you see, I believe that's the most important. Why we do photography, the way that we love photography. I remember when I started photography in the 70s, many people said, photography is finished, you must go to television, we must do video for television, that is the future. And after I started to do black and white, everyone said, Sebastian, you must go to color. And everything that I did, they said, no, that is wrong way. I remember when I started my big project, Genesis, that I put 8 years to photograph, Neil Borges, that you know very well, Neil said to me, Sebastian, you are a human photographer, you'll be doing animals, you'll be doing landscape, how you can have said, I can, Neil, I have a right to go, and I go, and I do, and I went, I did my story. And I believe that's the most important. It's your thermometer for your own life, is your mind, what you want to do, the way that we do, and the things happen around, they happen around. But you keep going, that's it.
Sure. No, but when you moved into doing your Genesis project, you said that you are tired of photographing droughts, famines, deaths, and all kinds of tragedies, and you want to move away to nature to nurture your spirit. Now, you've done that and fulfilled. the world, not only yourself, but the world of photography. Even Ansel Adam will be proud of you to see some of your landscapes, though you are not a landscape photographer. So what is your next journey?
Let me come back a little bit. Raghu, do you know when I became close to the landscape, to the nature, to the environment? When I was living in your home. Raghu, when I saw the hundreds, thousands of small trees that you and me made in these small cans of sardine, cans of milk, anything you have, way to put some soil inside and you put a plant inside. Your garden was the paradise. And it was amazing. I was looking at you planting for the future, for the future of one farmer that you are getting, for the future of your family, because you were in this moment a young family. You were just starting with meat, and Nandon was there. And I saw Jesus, say, this is amazing. Why this guy is planting so many trees? And I came back to France, I tell Lélia, just after my parents become old, give us this farm, that's a quite big farm. And from there, these ideas were inside. You see, the life, we don't discover nothing. Everything that we do, we saw something happen, something influenced us. We came us in some way inside us. And that grows, that become another. You see, that's the point. When you said that I apply you to stay in your home, I love very much your home in Home Market. It was so nice, this house. It was very small house.
In our new home.
Well, look, it was so high ceiling.
Yeah.
You had not many furniture inside. I remember you had the furniture with your shirts was there inside. It was so nice. So nice the way that Nandan was there with Mita, and all together was a small community. And I said, oh my God, I would be so happy to be part of this community that apply you to be part of it. And you give me this opportunity. And it was so fantastic, you know? Was the beginning of a big friendship. That's a big friendship till now. That's fantastic, you know? That's nice.
Wow. Wow. So I think we'll ask them if they want to ask any questions from you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, sir. Yes, I do have a lot of comments. First of all, hugely applauding and congratulating you for the beautiful talk, such a humanitarian basis to take it forward. I will ask just a few questions and please take it. The first question from the audience is, are photojournalists activists?
You see, as I said a few minutes ago, photography is a way of life. It's not that you do photography because you are a journalist, because you are a photojournalist, because you are an activist. It's your life. You cannot do a story if it's not your story, if you are not comfortable to do it, if you don't have a big pleasure to be there. If you impose yourself on a story, you cannot do it. That means you can only do well one story. You can only do a nice story if you are completely concerned with this story. In this moment, yes, you are completely inside. You are not an activist. You are not a photojournalist. You are not an economist, photographer. Many people that I wear. It's nothing of this. It's a way of life. Photography is a way of life. You must be completely concerned with the historical moment that you are living. You must be completely coherent with your ideas, with your ideology, if you want to speak in activism and politics, and with your ethics. You must be concerned with all this. And you put your life inside and you do it. And that for me, the definition of the things.
Well, let me explain what Sebastian said slightly differently. Sebastian, what you are saying is photography being a way of life. And when things begin to seep into you, into your system, into your psyche, and you begin to respond, it may not give you instant gratification, but certainly it begins to take you into depths of things, of life, of nature, of everything. And in today's world, people don't have the patience to invest that kind of time, patience, and energy into it. And that's where the flaw also lies.
Thank you, sir. A slightly follow-up question to this is, suppose if there is a moment where the photographer realizes that what he's about to photograph is either a little unethical or an unfair moment, should he document it or should he let it be?
Is Raghu or me?
So I
Either
think,
of you, sir. Either of you, please.
Sebastian, I have, given so many talks, spoken so much, and when I hear my own voice over and over again, it bores me. So it's you do it.
Okay. You see, it's ethical is not one concept. It's a straight line. You cannot be after ethical, not before ethical, must be in the ethical. But what is ethical is a personal judgment. Each one has one. Each one has a way to position himself where you are. Me, how many times I put my cameras in the ground in place to photograph, I sit and I cry in front of situations that were so hard. And sometimes I had so dramatic a situation that was necessary to photograph because it was necessary to show what was happening in front of me for every person on this planet in order that things don't happen more. Sometimes people came to my cameras like they were speaking a microphone and asked me to do. I was in moments where in Africa that I saw so many drama, so many deaths. Some days I saw 15,000, 16,000 people die. To bury these people was necessary to have a bulldozer to open a huge hole and to push these people inside. I saw so many dramatic things and I was there alone. No one was there to teach me, Sebastian, that is good, that is bad. I do, I don't do. And see, and it's me that alone was there that taken a decision to do or not to do, to be or not to be, and to realize or not to realize. And after when I see people sit in nice chairs in big cities, judging photographers that they did this or they did it there, they have no right to judge because they were not there. You must be there to see if you can do or cannot do, but only you with your own ethics. That is my point.
Well, to put it slightly differently and simply, I'll say that if I am into a situation where somebody is dying and I am the only one who can save this life, I think it is my responsibility to do that. But if I am in a situation where a whole lot of people are there and things are happening, I'm sorry, I am not a social worker. I am a photographer to record and to share with the rest of the world. So these are two simple situations, that we should not indulge in thinking and losing a great moment in history to share with the rest of the world.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, both of you. The next question is for Mr. Salgado. What do you hope to achieve with the release of your long-term project Genesis? Also, a similar question in that aspect. Can you tell us what your toughest assignment was? Thank you.
can you speak slowly, because my English is not very good, and I don't hear. I lose my audition in Kuwait War in 1991 and don't hear very well. You speak slowly and ask me again, please.
Sure, sir. What was your toughest assignment? And in that same respect, there is another question. What do you hope to achieve with the release of your long-term project, Genesis?
You see, when I went to photograph Genesis, I have never made a picture of nature, of the other animals. And I was coming for a dramatic moment of my life. I was made in a book about movements of population, a book called Migration, Exodus. And I saw so many hard things that I had to stop photography. I said, I don't photograph more in my life. I will become a farmer. I went to Brazil. It was the moment that my parents gave us this farm. And Leila, my wife, had the idea to replant the forest. So I said, I have a friend that did in India. We go ahead and we plant close to 3 million trees, more than 300 different species. Today we have a huge forest. But planting these, I had a big wish to know what was pristine in this planet, to probably start photography again, but giving myself a kind of gift, a gift to see what was pure, what was beautiful in this planet. And I started to do a research, and I discovered that about half of the planet was yet as the day of the Genesis. And we conceived a project, and I gone for 8 years. And I knew exactly where to go, but I have no idea what kind of pictures I'll be taking. Because, for example, I went to Galapagos, and for the first time of my life, I went to photograph an animal, different than humans, because till there I had photographed just one animal, us, the humans. And I was in front of a torture, an amazing, huge torture, the Galapagos, this torture that about 2-3 tons. And I went to photograph the torture. I went to photograph this torture that has more than 100 years old, one authority in front of me. And the statue started to move and say, oh my Joseph Christ, how can I photograph this statue? And in a moment I put myself in my knees and I came smaller than the statue. In this moment the statue stopped. I said, oh, something happened. I walk a little bit back and she came to me. I understand that it was necessary to myself to put me inside the logical system of the animals in order to photograph them. In a moment I was 20 centimeters from the torture was around me, and it was amazing the way that I did this. And I gone from this for many different places. During 8 years, I photograph in average 80 months a year, 2 months in a story, coming back to Paris, editing, preparing, going again. Was very hard, but my wife came with me. Leila came with me, many different stories. That means it was possible for me to stay there. Julian, my son, that's a filmmaker, came to work in films with me. We were there together. And I gone from this, and I learned a lot of things. The first one, the biggest trip that I did during these 8 years was not in Antarctica, was not in Arctic, was not in Africa, was not in Papua New Guinea. The biggest trip I did inside myself. I discovered that myself, I were in nature. I were part of this marvelous kingdom of all animals. I'm just one animal between all the others. I discovered that everything is alive, that the trees, I saw trees with 2,000, 3,000 years old that suffer from fire, that suffer from ice, that suffer, and they were there, beautiful, alive. Wow, that gave me a huge lesson. I saw so many, I was sitting in front of mountains and to see that the minerals are completely alive and that we were part of all this. And today, when I see people come to see these shows because we let it create a huge show. We did a quite large book that gone everywhere around the world. And my wish with this picture is that the people that come inside the show, when they go out, they must be not the same person. They must feel the planet in a different way. They must become more part of this planet. The contrary, the human being become a kind of alien in his own planet. We cannot be an alien. We are part of all this. We are part of a huge movement.
Wonderful, wonderful, really. Wow. God bless you. Beautiful.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir. Raghu Rai, sir, the next question is for you. Photographers are lifelong learners. In this aspect, we would like to ask you, what was your latest learning? Please explain. Thanks.
In COVID times.
Yes, we could expand it to that.
Yeah, because COVID time, I'm stuck, homebound. My wife won't allow me to go out. So what I'm doing in 7 months, I have looked at my archives of more than 50 years, almost 55 years. And in these 7 months, I have almost edited and curated 7 books, which are to be published later. And one of the books is very simple. You know, Sebastiao, when emergency was declared in India, and there were no political meetings, no rallies, and no protests, and not even social and cultural things were happening. And the country, there was kind of fear, and everything came to a standstill. And for almost 2 years, we didn't have much to do in a newspaper. I was with the Statesman newspaper at that time, which was very respected paper then. So, bored with everything with myself, I started going to Old Delhi, and especially Old Delhi being my favorite place. When we walked from Daryaganj towards Jama Masjid, there was a wall which is almost less than a kilometer long. And I used to sit there and watch people and photograph the wall. So there was graffiti, there were messages, there were gossip, there was sexuality, there was everything on the wall. And the wall stood silent, bearing everything that people in those areas gave her. And I went photographing on so many different levels. So off and on, I will go there and photograph it. So it went on for almost 2 years, but only a few times. And the last day when the emergency was lifted and the elections were held. So for voting, I went to Old Delhi again. And I was coming back after the election, 5 p.m., everything was over. So when I was coming back, again, I was crossing that wall. And on that wall was that slogan, that triangle, red triangle, hum do, hamare do. And that was also one of the reasons that why Congress lost it, because of the forced sterilizations. So, emergency sent me to the wall and I photographed there. And the last day, the nature sends me back to the wall to get my final image. What? Which is, there is a triangle, the day's elections are over, a poor man is carrying all the posters and garbage to sell it for a few rupees. And there is a poster of Indira Gandhi, which is also being shoved into a sack, and the triangle and Hamdo. So that was the last picture I got from that wall. So now I have gone back after 40 long years to see how wall speaks to me. And it's so chaotic, it's so filthy, and how the time has put several scars on it. So that's the book I have edited, which is going to be quite a simple political statement of its own kind, very different than most of my other work I have done before. So there are many things. I've done a small book on Satyajit Ray, the great filmmaker whom I loved very much, and many other things.
Thank you so much, Herr Salgado, Raghu Rai ji, for your time. For all of you who have logged in to our program today, we thank you for your time. We hope you will have a wonderful time at the festival. Please do join in for the rest of the talks until the 13th of December, scheduled almost every day at 8 p.m. Thank you again for joining.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Sebastião, my love to Leila, Giuliano, Rodrigo,
Okay.
all of them. And God bless you for being so wonderful as ever.
Ok, Raghu, tchau.
Ciao.
Eu quis tudo que é. Tchau.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Te perguntei, François?